we'll begin in silent prayer. Amen. Remember that much during the class, not afterwards. We may have to remind through that, and please, if you want to speak or add a thought, there are many of us, to prevent confusion. If you have a thought or question, I may call out for a monosyllable answer and then everyone can speak. Want to speak, see your hand and you can take that opportunity. This is something that I think we're going to have to also remind a number of times. When you do speak, please speak loudly. It's amazing how people's voices can not travel, particularly when there's so many of us and there are slight accents. So please speak loudly and clearly. You're speaking to be heard, and everyone wants to or should want to know what you have to say. So that's just some introductory thoughts. I want to ask a question to begin with, and then really putting it out for you to answer and discuss. We've been in this last dispensation through the history of our latter rain, through the history of our midnight cry. Messages were presented that were extremely challenging for a great many people, continue to challenge many people. And in that dispensation, as you would expect, we went through the greatest and still ongoing shaking that this movement will ever see from the inside. So my question that I want to first gauge from the audience is, why are you here? Why are you on this side of this split that has just occurred? So does anyone want to give their thoughts to that? Why are they here? Why are they not with those who have left? What kept you? Brother Dennis?
I think based on that question, I want to answer it based on the looking at the how nature. For example, you have said why are we? You have talked something about this.
So I think if I understood your question correctly, what you are asking, I mean, what makes us, or what made many of us to decide
I saw a hand.
For me to answer that, the reason why I'm here. Evidences consider. Also, when I go back to history, confirms the point. So that's why I'm here.
Praise God. Brother Rogers?
I'm here because of methodology. Let me try to explain. So when you come to our reform life, or to consider the reform line of the priests, we just fight primary waymarks for dispensations. Now, when you come to the first dispensation of the flowering, we need to understand what the message is in that history of the messenger. It's not easy to do that because the beginning of a reform line, but we have histories that can confirm that. If you go through history, the history of Noah, Moses, Christ and the Israelites, you realize that there was always a message and a messenger. And if you take these messages and pick out their characteristics, you can be able to identify the message in our history. So the moment you identify the message, then whoever was the individual attached to that message becomes the message of that dispensation. So at the very beginning of our plowing, we have this new view of 1145 that Elder Jeff is introducing into the church. And we know that we already have the view that is contained in the book, Dan Revelation by Brother Smith. So Adventists are going to resist the view of Elder Jeff based on what Brother Smith wrote is in his book. But we were required to make a decision which message is correct based on the dispensation that we are living in. Is it Brother Smith's or Jeff's? And using methodology, you were led to see that it was the message of Elder Jeff was the one that was consistent with the world in which we are living. So if you come to the second dispensation, you can't change. Now we know that in that history, we'll have a message. The moment you identify the message, the one attached to that message becomes the messenger. So if you come to the history of 9/11 to 2014, you have the message inside. But just like in the plowing, you have Elder Jeff and part of the just resisting this message. So we know in that history, Elder Parminder is the messenger. Then when you come to 2014 to 2019, the latter rain, so you know that you already have two witnesses of the plowing and the former rain, that when you come to this dispensation, the only thing you need to look for is the message, then identify the messenger, connect to that message, it becomes the messenger for that particular dispensation. So if you do that, we know that the message for this dispensation, if I term it as the minute cry message, was given by the test, therefore we identify as the message of this dispensation. But also, just like William said, there is this other test of the leadership. So we know both messengers are the leadership for this for the ended dispensation. So I think primarily this methodology which shows me that the two of you are on the right side of the issue, but the other side is wrong.
Thank you. My brother?
I pray God. This is a personal view, my own perspective. If a house is built on a weak foundation, when there's a shaking, the house falls down, isn't it? And the house which has been built on a strong foundation, it always stays. I would like to bring this on the first show, the line of the being of modern Israel. When our brethren, the Millerites,
church.
Are you, is it a different reason?
Yeah, just if I can, I just want to maintain the same line of thought, but I will give a quick explanation. When our reform line, and when we were brought unto this understanding,
The gospel is to bring the men, the lost men from darkness, bring them back to His kingdom. And God has a tool to do that. And that tool is the church. So God has to enter into them, He has to prepare them. And if they're not ready, it has to begin fast. God is going to for this.
What was the first message that opened up to this movement? today because you're some type of puppets, that you just what select people are teaching. The point I wanted to make at the very beginning was the reason that every one of us are here is because we have brought ourselves into complete submission to reform lines. Whether it's public evangelism, it's how you're interacting with your family, with your friends, in the church, in the world. It's how you choose to spend your time, what you choose to study, how you choose to live, who you choose to marry. Everything that you're doing is subject to a reform line. So I used public evangelism as just another example of that. That the reason that you're not doing public evangelism, and most of you went to the reform line of Christ and those who didn't referred back to it, is because a reform line, whether it's Moses or Christ, has told you not to do public evangelism. The reason that you're here is because a reform line told you that this was the right place to be. So the reason that all of us have our faith in this movement, what I believe one brother referred to as building his house upon the rock, is that you're all here because you're following the dictates of a reform line. So how important do you think it is right now to know where we are on our reform lines? Those reform lines are controlling everything we do and think and say. So right now, what dispensation are we in? Harvest. We're in a new dispensation, and how do you know how to behave?
Going back to the different lines of history.
We go back to the different lines of history. So if people don't know how to behave or what to do, or if there's confusion in the movement, where do we need to go back to? The reform lines. They've already, whether you realize it or not, started to control everything that you do and think and say. So now when we're in a new dispensation and we know that various topics trouble the movement, we've gone through this shaking, many people are still uncertain yet to decide, what we need to anchor us is our reform lines. So that's what I wanted to do in the first presentation, is something many of you are probably already familiar with, but go back to these reform lines and make sure we're all anchored in the same place. So I've already Second Advent. This is a we look at marks. Dispensations meaning just dispensation, but you can bring year around August of September last simplifies it, and that is are you all familiar with this? Is anyone not familiar with this? Raise your hand if you're not familiar with this. Good. The way it has these through each reform line is gives it to us, particularly in Ezekiel 20. In Ezekiel 20, God stretching out his arm with a mighty hand to rule over his people. He said, so if God's going to bring them out, they're in captivity. Out of captivity, I will get you out of the country gathered, wherein you were scattered with a mighty hand. Among the people, captivity, out of the countries, and God, and we won't go through. So that started to see that had these four and where do we get this from? Where do we get the repeat? Where do we see that in Millerite history?
Okay, we always see this repeat pattern in this. There's always an increase of knowledge, formulation, and exact test. So we see even in this time period still the same repeating pattern.
Yes. Thousand. Brother Rogers.
November 9th.
I'm not saying no. October. So you have the midnight. what was our
then 1840.
What was the test in 1840? Specifically, it's a principle. The day for '79. Timothy and Magazine. And then a test. Can we see? Then that it should be the same. This method effect of the external.
But the messages are different. At first, it's just almost as silent as the internal message, but
Quietly. Sentence away. They
The nature.
more. Panium. And 19, the sharp. Increased knowledge, 2016. Formalized, 2018. Test. Was because particularly some of the fact online dispensation from only late this year but began so message, yes? Placed upon that message of time. divided this movement. Why do you believe in the message of two streams of information?
I can systems of information to previous dispensations. If I go from 1911 to 911, if I say the message in that history was done in 1145, and that which is contained. What the church is holding on to message, and those who accept become part of the movement and begin to participate in this reform life. You have the message of time. When you come to 22, on the other, the Parminder is saying you can predict time because of the idea of understanding truth based on dispensations. And based on these two witnesses. Some of the concepts we are using them, but subconsciously, like how we work using the laws of physics, but we employ those rules subconsciously. So this idea of two streams of information is something that was already in our movement, but we were subconscious to it. Now God has to raise up someone to formalize it to everyone, that this is a truth in this moment that we need to understand. And I believe now we transition from being subconscious to this truth to consciousness in the history of the Midnight Crash.
Message of the understanding of parables. Let me explain what I mean. You know, the major forms I can highlight is when we talk of parables, we are talking of comparing and contrasting, but also we can show that we are talking of the concept of end from the beginning. And then we are talking of the first dimension among other many forms of parables. So if I can take one of the formal shape of parables, that is the principle of God declaring the end from the beginning, we can illustrate that when we start our reform line from 1989, we are living at the very end of the world. We are living at we are living at the very end of what is happening at the end of the world. We can go to the very beginning of the world to try and understand how it looked like, and by using the beginning as the natural is going to teach us something about the end of the world, which will be spiritual in my case. So for instance, if you go to Eden, when the universe began with our first parents, and you study how it looked, how they were tested. They were basically tested on two streams of information. When they are placed in the Garden of Eden, they are going to be given some instruction from God, and He's going to tell them, you can do everything in this garden, but there is one tree you are not going to eat, and that is the tree in the midst of the garden. So it gives them some information which they are supposed to follow. On the contrary, we have another information by Satan to the medium of the serpent, and when Satan comes, it takes the same message that Christ had given, but what he's going to do to this message is only going to distort it. I mean, Christ says, don't eat the tree that is in the midst of heaven. Satan comes, does not come up with his own information or any new information, he only distorts the information that Christ is given. On the contrary, he's going to tell them, if you eat this tree, you are really going to be pride, or you are going, something good is going to happen to them. So you can see it's the same information distorted, and when somebody gives an information, I come and distort it. That is what in the modern world we can call disinformation. So I think if you go to the very beginning, we have two streams of information being given to our first parents. So using either the rule of first mention on and from the beginning, you can understand, therefore, at the end of the world, we must also be tested on this concept of two streams of information.
All right, for me, I'll use simple logic from the board there. Information is what is showing. Because we come, when we see allowing for the in 2014, I remember the issue of this movement about no public evangelism is also coming. So if that is the plowing for the Nethanims, and we are saying there is a truth about no public, then what comes into my mind is some plowing then, no of information, because see that people in the world, they must be having from 2014 to 2019.
In nature, it's something beautiful. It's like everyone full of a testing message. That's the harvest. Work on God's people simply with work. If people can so where do people they like what do you say? You can't and 16. Is it formalized in 2018? Yes. Yes. That's nice. to the a bad message, everything's
when it comes to the netting events.
what we talk information that you can see polarized. You can lives in US
Fahrenheit.
as in days. Firefighter to the who and it became the as someone who had done world movie / documentary October 2 different stories of the United States. He's as a movement starts of as now make we understand even say it on do and say is dictated right here. You understand what you're supposed to raise your voice, to step back, tells us exactly to be going back event in a large fashion is happen under the they've had the system destroy 2000. They've had external event for 2009, Battle of Raffia. As 19 I want us to we can understand the right
I noticed that happened.
priests.
Yes.
You understand those studies that were done on the we are the priests are harvested, them do from Panium. If you're a priest,
Taking the message to the
take the message to them, yes? Call that a harvest. We're going to harvest the remainder of the Adventist church from Panium to Sunday. Is that okay? This is the church in 2 steps. What now? See that as a Babylon, my people. They're in the world. That's harvest. Model of agriculture. Prior to that, Moraine? Them. Events. Before Brazil elected Bolsonaro, rights. either accept, so we must be tested upon it. August 11, 1840, people are going to be tested. Just a parable symbol of something that individual people, a message that it is first. Is that okay? Some type of message that is going to will either be they must different groups. Point. Supporter. Said I saw his attack. Saw him come into government. All of that comes to a I'm on the test. Is it at the Sunday law? No. So see that?
Other side. What side?
Sorry?
Like 1989 is the same as that way, which is Sunday law.
Which
Here?
no. This the message in 1989 it was the point of information of short increase on it was understood and then organized. So when you 2019 the message is in silent, right? Then later it's going to be understood, which is the formalization of silent about 2019, but fulfillment of November the 9th. Because if it is so, it means that that waymark is understood, right? So which we cannot stay again without putting the increase on.
November 9. And the increase of knowledge and formalization. That's okay.
It's silent, or it is that waymark is always silent, right? So then later on the increase of knowledge. Quiet.
Quiet. In 1989, reform lines are already understood. So you can 1998, 18 years. 1989, we're to 2019, there was a massive increase of knowledge and a formalization and then a shut door. 2008 was opened up. Rather. What at the 2014, 2012. So we're always to be looking forward. Having going to give most of the projects backwards. So 2018, because we're so to the Sunday law is about to happen. We'll be to see this in a we'll kneel in
all the time.
We will have a program beginning at 5, but we shall have start teaching lunch at 3. So between 3 and 5 it's lunch, and 5 we will be here for devotion. So let's keep time. God bless you.
Grace. Analyzing. Thanks for speaking. Did you have the keys? I get changed. Oh, that's a good idea. I figured it out now. How to shut the door. You just swing it from 5 to oh yeah. Got it.
I can take it back this way.
Thank you. No, I haven't.
I hope you remember to switch it
Lucky I said only good things.
at the record.